So there we go. We're recorded, and if you have to leave or if you've got a team member that was unable to make it, we'll send the recording out a little bit later this afternoon so that everybody has a chance to do it. So again, questions in the chat if you have them, or feel free to unmute yourself whenever Chris hits a pause. Chris is our director of sales. I think everybody's met him at this point. Jeanie Rees is our sales support coordinator. They are part of the team here that helps. I think Bree is on the call as well, although we're not going to make her present today. And so any questions that you've got really about anything kind of pre-sales process, application, underwriting, I know they're going to walk through a lot of things. But if you've got a question about kind of an unrelated part, even if they're not covering it, please feel free to ask it. We are going to cut it at the top of the hour. So if we have more questions than we have time, then we'll come back and do this again, just so we make sure that we get everything covered. I think that's enough. I know we've got folks that are still joining, but they'll be able to figure it out as we go. So Chris, at this point, I'm going to mute myself and turn it over to you.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. Well, welcome everybody. Thanks for joining us. As you all know, we're going to go through the boarding tools today. What I'd like to do is kind of do it in two sections. In the first round, we're just going to go through the boarding tool, how to access it, the technical issues with the boarding tool. If you have any issues like that, obviously definitely let us know. But the second round, we're going to go talk about the underwriting ramifications of, if you choose to fill out the application in this manner, things to think about it in the underwriting process. So let me go ahead and share my screen. Already started. Okay. So obviously the boarding tool is on our website, paycompass.com. I'm in incognito mode right now, just so that you guys can see what it looks like from the beginning. Paycompass.com, upper right-hand corner. I'm going to go ahead and select Agent Portal. It's going to ask me for my password. Everybody knows each other's password here, which is awesome. So it's True North 123. I know John loves this. We are going to be, obviously taking care of that with the new CRM. So I'm going to go ahead and stop right here and talk about this software, talk about why we chose to go with this. This company is called Under, and it's a really, really great software. It really has made this process fast and easy for us. Before we were using Under, some of you on this call have seen that before. We were using MXISO Agent. We were able to send these out using MXISO Agent, but priority is sunsetting that website. So that functionality was turned off a long, long time ago. And it is something critical for us. Being agent first, we want to make it easy for you to send these out. We want to make it easy for you to fill these out. So that was one of the reasons why we went with Under. I mean, we spent a lot of money. We looked at Iris. We looked at, different things, our own custom CRM, which is what we ended up going with. So I'm kind of in charge of that process. I'm working with our developers. Actually, a couple of you have helped me with testing, which I really appreciate. As you all know, that's been a long time coming. The testing part is the part that takes the longest, but kind of wanted to talk about this particular software. It's super fast, super easy. I think you're really going to like it. So again, paycompass.com, True North 123. As you know, we're looking at thesis, we're looking at first data. We're not going to really get into, why using one or the other. We can talk about that on the second part as well. But this runs you through 6 separate modules, and it doesn't really matter which one I choose. Obviously, it maps to a first data application, thesis maps to thesis, but modules are identical. So I did bring one up that I wanted to show you guys. One thing I also wanted to talk about, when you're connecting to this, you want to make sure you have a pretty good internet connection. I know a lot of agents out there in the rural parts of the country don't have a great cell connection. This is dependent on your internet connection. If you do disconnect, sometimes there are issues with the data not mapping correctly, or it's missing, or even it just doesn't show up. It doesn't submit. So that's something to definitely keep in mind. Right now, as you can see, the very first thing at the top is going to be agent name, and the reason why you have to put your name up here, because this is a shared login. Like I keep telling everybody, the website doesn't know if it's me, is it John, is it Jeanie logged in, has no idea. So I got to put my name at the top here. Once we have our own CRM, obviously that's not going to be necessary. You're going to have your own login. It's going to know exactly who you are. So we'll just go through the module here. I got some just kind of rubbish information I'm entering here. Keep in mind, a lot of this stuff is required on the MPA, so we've had to make it required in the tool. If I try to move forward in this module, I hit the next button, it's going to kick in some validation rules and it's not going to let me move forward. So I do have to have some data in here. So I'm going to go ahead and fill this in just so you guys see what it looks like. And then at the end, I'll go ahead and stop here and answer any questions we might have. We're going to make this nice and simple. All right, so that's it. I got my business info entered. Perfect. And again, keep in mind, guys, this tool, you're going to hear me say this a lot, is primarily meant to be used in front of the merchant. So as long as you can access the website, paycompass.com on your laptop, your tablet, your phone, it doesn't really matter. You're going to have access to this tool. So if you go to the next module, I'm going to go ahead and hit the next button. If I want to page back, let's say I, mess something up on the business address, I can hit this bottom arrow, this bottom back arrow here in the center. What you don't want to do is you don't want to hit the back arrow on your browser, because if you do that, a lot of times it will erase all this data. So you're just kind of on a single connection. Keep in mind, paging back, you're going to want to use that arrow. So I'm going to go ahead and finish filling in my signer information. This email that you enter here, this is going to be important. I'm going to come back to this. We do have a way where we can electronically email this through your merchant. It's going to be emailed through this address that you enter here. So I'm going to touch on that here in just a little bit. Again, just putting in my signer information, date of birth, social security number, all this fun stuff. All right, I'm going to go ahead and page to the processing info. Visa, MasterCard, Discover, super easy. We all know what these are. American Express, plays by the tune of their own drum, so we're going to do their own field. Soon they're actually going to combine these. Jeanie, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think they're going to combine the Visa, MasterCard, Discover, Amex volumes, right?
Yeah, they're combining to just one total average monthly call or monthly volume. And they are going to be removing the high ticket as well.
Yep. So for now, the MPA still has that on there, so it does have to be populated. All right, I'm going to go ahead and hit next. One thing I wanted to show you guys is kind of something that a lot of people miss. If you want to see what the MPA looks like based on the data you've entered so far, there's a button here that says PDF view. If I click on this, this will actually bring up a PDF view of my MPA. So I'm going to go ahead and zoom in here so you guys can kind of see this. It's a little blurry, but here's everything I have so far based on the information I've entered. So if you want to take a peek, take a look at what that looks like, you're welcome to hit that button and check that out. One thing I wouldn't do here is print this MPA from here. It's not going to look like the way you want. It's going to end up printing this entire page. So you can print it at the very end when you submit it. So I'll show you guys that here in just a second as well. All right, so going back here, I'm going to hit my form view, back to my module. I'm going to go ahead and enter my bank name. It does validate the routing number, so you do have to put in an actual routing number. The account number does not validate it, but you do have to confirm. So this is super easy. Pricing and equipment setup, right? So this is going to be your most important one. The very top button, my discount rate. This is my pricing method. Flat rate, NCA, cash discounting, whatever you want to call it. Interchange plus. You can have to. So if you look at these fields, you'll see they actually change. So they change because they map to different fields. So I'm going to just go ahead and put a value in here. Let's say it's going to be a flat rate, 4%, 3.85. And we're going to talk about these percentages later as well. One thing that we feel several agents kind of miss is this discount payment method. Traditionally, on flat rate, you're usually going to select daily. If it's interchange plus, it's going to be monthly. We do have the flexibility of, obviously, if you want to do flat rate with monthly, we have agents doing that. If you want to do pass through with daily, we also can do that as well. So keep in mind, if you do miss this, if you submit a deal that's flat rate and you have it set to monthly, you're probably going to get a call because we do review these deals as they come through. If this is something we don't typically see, Jeanie or Bree will pick up the phone and call you, or if it's something we've already talked about, then obviously we'll go ahead and process it for you. But just want you to know that there are a set of eyes that look at these deals, every single one that comes through for anomalies. We try to do what we can to get up ahead of the pending, to get ahead of any issues. So just kind of keep in mind that. Keep that in mind. All right. And then authorization fees. These are left blank on purpose, guys. So a lot of agents tell me, what should I charge? You know, what's the minimum? What's the maximum? And the answer is there is no minimum. There is no maximum. You know, this is your business. You can charge as much or as little as you want based on your schedule. So by default, these are blank, but I'm going to go ahead and put values in here just so you can see what it looks like when it maps to the MCA. There's my monthly fees. And my bat fee. And maybe I want to put an annual fee out there. Okay. So again, if you leave them blank, it's not going to map anything, it's not going to hurt anything. Just go ahead and leave it blank. This last section here, other card types. This is where you're going to put your PIN-based debit discount. One thing to keep in mind, a lot of agents, you submit a flat rate deal 3.85, they'll actually fill out the PIN-based debit as well. PIN-based debit, signature debit, completely different. If we do see one that comes through flat rate with PIN-based debit, you can't really, this is going to be actually a markup. And I'm going to let Jeanie touch on this right now when we get these applications. So we see a lot of people fill this out. We know you're not trying to mark up 385 basis points on top of PIN debit interchange. So you will get a call if we see these. We do have a way to submit these with flat rate on PIN debit. But we need to know that ahead of time because it's not something we typically see. Jeanie, if you want to chime in on that, I'll go ahead and do that here if you like.
Yeah, absolutely. So for flat rate, you're typically just going to put the information up above where it's the signature debit and the credit. When you put something in the PIN-based debit, what it is doing, what it is telling the system is that you want to charge them pass-through debit plus this percentage. So when that comes through to me to enter into the system, it shows pass-through debit plus 385 basis points, which is obviously way more than what anybody's going to want to charge. So with those, we need to know if you want PIN debit turned on and if you want it on flat rate. And those are things that we can put in the equipment notes section as well, which is a little farther down, I believe.
Correct. Yep. Awesome. Last section here are your additional card types. Obviously, you know, your fleet, you have that option here. EDC, if you have a supermarket, convenience store, you need to have that option. You can turn it on here. And then this last field, this is the equipment field. This is not required. This field is simply here for your convenience. If you know what hardware you want to use for this particular merchant, you know what POS device, you know how you want the VAR configured, any special instructions that you want the service team to know, this is where you're going to put them in. So as you all know, may not know, the way it works is deal comes in, goes to underwriting, any penned issues, we handle that for you. Once it's approved, the service team takes over, they reach out, confirm what you want to do, how you want the VAR configured, any details like that. So all this is going to do is save you a few hours, save you even a day, possibly, of us getting that equipment out. So let's say, for example, on this merchant, I want to use a Valor DL500. Okay. So when the service team sees this, hey, Chris, congrats on the application. Let's get that Valor VL500 out of inventory, start programming it. You still want to go with that? Yes, no, not set in stone. You can change it. Obviously, we know, those choices change from the time we fill out the application to the time the account is approved. So no big deal there. And this is pretty much it. This is the last one. So again, scenario one, I'm in front of the merchant. I'm going to spin my device around. I'm going to hit the next button, and they're going to go ahead and authorize on my laptop, tablet, phone, whatever the case may be. So scenario two, if you're filling this out on behalf of your merchant and you want us to email this to your merchant, you're going to do the exact same thing you just saw here. And you're going to contact sales@paycompass.com, give us the DBA and the email address that you entered here. This is where it's going to be emailed. Your merchant will then get an email. It'll say, please complete your PayCompass application. It will have your name in the subject line. They click the button and it'll literally take them to what you see here, this URL. So let's say you messed up the address. They can correct it on the fly. So they have that option to do that. So they'll do the same thing you're doing, just as if you're in front of them. They'll pay through here, see the pricing, see the notes, see the fees, and then they'll go ahead and authorize it. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and authorize this. Looks exactly like my signature. And one caveat here, I do always tell people, make sure that whether you're in front of the merchant or the merchant gets this in email, you want to make sure you click the submit form button down here in the bottom right. A lot of people think they just sign it, close my browser, it's submitted. It is not submitted. You want to make sure you click the submit form button, because the landing page this takes you to allows you to download the MPA. So I'm going to show you what that looks like. So scenario one, I'm in front of the merchant, got it all filled out. Everything's good to go. I'm going to go and download the MPA here.
And a
I'm
side
gonna
note
click
on
download
that real
form.
quick, Chris,
Mhm.
is please don't please do not click submit form with no signatures on it. If you
Yep,
need us
yep.
to email it, do not click submit form, because what happens is it comes through to us as a signed application is in, which means we drop everything and we need to submit that application. So when we get in and then we submit it and we're like, oh, the MPA is not even signed.
Yeah,
It
and
just
one of the
adds
the
time to the
interesting
deals.
things about the software, if you touch, if you just touch the signature box, it actually thinks you signed it, but it doesn't really show up on the NPA. So it's just kind of a technical thing working with software. If we do see these that come through without any signatures, you're going to get a phone call. We want to make sure this gets handled before it gets to underwriting. But just to show you what the MPA looks like, I'm staring right now. Let me go ahead and zoom in a little bit. This is what my MPA looks like with all the data I've entered. So my pricing, got security features in here. So here's what Jeannie was talking about with that PIN debit markup, right? This is what it looks like. So when we submit this is submitted as a markup on PIN debit interchange. So this gives you a good idea of what the underwriters are going to see. So we want to be able to get ahead of that. So if you send us a note, you do want flat rate on PIN debit. There is something that the service team does on the background that allows them to know that that's actually flat rate. That's not a markup on PIN debit. All right, then you can download it here, give it to your merchant, whatever you want. They can download it themselves and have a record of it. So the process then is this comes to our desk. We give it a once over. Any issues, we'll reach out to you. We'll go ahead and submit it to the underwriting team. And a lot of times when you get these in the morning, we get same day responses. Obviously, everybody knows bank is in New York, Eastern time. You get in the afternoon, they're probably not going to look at it until the next day. All right. So, John, if you want to open it up to any questions here on the process of using the tool, we can definitely answer that. The next segment, we're going to talk about the underwriting ramifications of, why you fill it out the way you do and what that looks like down the road.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead, Steve. Yeah, you're good.
If we send it to the merchant, is the pricing piece set and they can't adjust it, or can they go in and adjust the pricing?
They should not be able to adjust the pricing. They should not be able. And the new CRM we are working on will absolutely not. They'll still be able to see the pricing, but they will not be able to edit it, the pricing.
But they will be able to edit their tax ID number, email, address, things along those lines that they might need to adjust a little.
Yep. Good question.
Couple of questions that came in the chat. One of them is, how do we know what the high ticket will be if it's removed from the application?
So to my knowledge, I believe the high ticket, they are no longer taking that, or it's a much more minimized consideration when they're considering the risk profile of the account. And Jeannie actually has some pretty good insights about that, because that's something in the new system that they have changed.
Yeah, and to touch on that a little bit, underwriting is typically going to, realistically, they're going to set that kind of high ticket amount based on volume, so information that they're given, A, about that particular merchant, and B, what they know about that merchant's industry. So if you have a coffee shop, for example, and their high ticket is probably going to be somewhere in that, $100 range, let's say, just as an example. If a ticket comes through at $1,000 at a coffee shop, they're probably going to question it. So underwriting is pretty much going to set those risk profiles anyway. Now, if there is a situation where, let's say you have a bakery, a restaurant, something along those lines that does catering, for example. So they do occasionally see that $7,000, $8,000 ticket that is well above their, let's say, $50 average ticket. Those are things that we need to notate to underwriting. And in those cases, I would also suggest submitting statements that show some of those higher transactions. That way, underwriting is clearly aware of it. And then it still goes back to, they're still probably going to ask if they are typically seeing $75 average tickets and you start submitting something for 5,000, they're going to hold those funds. They're going to ask for copies of the receipts. They're going to ask for cardholder information so they can call and verify. I think part of it is just trying to streamline it a little bit more, which is why they're combining that monthly volume as well. So they're really just going to be asking for the average monthly volume and average ticket. Hopefully.
Hey, Jeannie, I'd like to add to that. Hello? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hey, Steven. Yep.
Yeah, so if you guys have a client that's going to occasionally have a large ticket, the first thing you want to let them know is that if you're going to have a large ticket outside your normal average ticket, gather information, call customer service, let them know you got this big ticket coming through so that risk will be aware of it. And that will actually slow down the pen process, or not pen process, them holding it. That's my experience for the last 22 years. Well, actually 23 years now. But if you let them know ahead of time and they gather that information up front, let them, hey, you're going to need this, A, B, C, and D, there won't be any issues.
Absolutely.
That's my 2 cents.
Correct.
Yep. Good point. 100% right.
Can I add something, Mike Zola? So like when you said that they'd look at the average of the industry. So I have a tire shop, except it's not your normal tire shop. They do truck tires. So their tickets average sometimes, many times 10, 15, 20,000. So that's, their average ticket is closer to 5,000. So, how do you, are they going to make me like report every time they have a ticket above 10,000 or something? Or how would you go about that out of the gate? And the reason I say that is I got them originally because I was able to get their $50,000 tickets deposited the next day without issue.
So typically, let me chime in here. Typically on those large tickets, are you talking about the average or are you talking about the high?
Well, they end up having a few average tickets of, between 25 and 50 grand a month, because they might have a couple of tractor trailers come in and they have to do all the tires on, 2 rigs for a particular customer. And, those tires are ridiculously expensive.
Yep. So same thing applies there. When you say it's a tire shop, it's not your average tire shop, it's a truck tire shop. They also have data tables on, large ticket tire shops just like that. And so they're going to underwrite that based on that data. So if it's a tire shop that has large transactions amounts, obviously we're going to let them know that in the underwriting. It's not, Joe's tires, get your spare tire 6 for $10. So yeah, they are definitely going to know that. But the more information we have ahead of underwriting and ahead of submitting it, the better.
Couple of sample statements included.
Yeah, I was just going to say that's really where previous processing statements are going to come in handy.
Perfect.
Because if submitting those to underwriting, they're going to see those sort of transactions come through and know that that's typical for them.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Yeah, good point, though. Good point. So yeah, let's segue right into, the underwriting ramifications of this. Not a whole lot on the business info. This is pretty basic. You need the legal, you need the DBA, you need the address. One thing I will note here, let's say it's a brand new business, right? Keep in mind the underwriter is in a big old office building somewhere in New York. All they have to go by is what's online. So if it's a brand new business, Google Maps doesn't have a picture. There's no links. They will ask for business verification just to make sure that that business actually exists at the address that we're submitting it. So we get these a lot in the pen. A picture of the business showing the sign with the door number will suffice. A tax license, a business license needs one of two things: the DBA name or the legal name and the address that we submitted. So that's going to be your main issue when you run into new businesses that haven't really been established, or even one that, let's say, it used to be called Joe's Tire Shop, and now it's John's Tire Shop. Well, we're going to need some business verification that shows John's Tire Shop. Well, it's been there 50 years. Yeah, that's great. That doesn't no longer exist. Now John's Tire Shop is taking its place. So they are going to require that. And sometimes it might seem like they're being sticklers on that. But again, this is all due diligence, making sure the business verification, making sure the business does exist. And we can work with them. You know, if you have, I've seen them take even a picture of a menu or, you know, picture of invoice from a company. So they are flexible on the business verification. But one thing they don't take is just, you know, picture the sign with no number on it or something like that. I've seen that come through too. Jeanie, I'm sure you've seen a couple other examples like that as well.
Yeah, realistically, when it's a brand new business, to Chris's point, a picture of the signage that's up with the actual address number on it is helpful. But the business license with that DBA address on it is usually a surefire bet to just get that passed through underwriting. I've seen people that have sent in pictures from inside the restaurant for business verification. Underwriting won't accept those. It could be any restaurant, right? So, I mean, again, keeping in mind that these are people that are in an office building, they're not familiar with any of the areas that you're in. You have to be able to provide them as much information as possible, because if they can't find it online, all they can go off of is what you've provided them.
And one of the things that you guys get from us is, you know, we interpret the notes of the underwriter. We understand the spirit of what they're trying to do. They don't necessarily absolutely need to have the lease agreement. They don't necessarily have to have X, Y, Z. What they're trying to do is they're trying to check a box for their file and move on. So if they get audited a year or two down the road, did you do this? Did you verify this? You know, their job can be on the line if they don't do their due diligence. So that's really what they're trying to do is actually prove that the business exists at this location. So we work with you on that. You know, if you send something, hey, will this work? We have a pretty good idea of whether it will or not. All right. Any questions here, John, on the business info?
I've got one question. So you guys said that when we if we're gonna have the client sign this, like say we're filling this information out at our office, and then I want him to be sent an email to sign it. We don't submit this, we just X out of it and then give you all that information. Is that correct?
Correct. Send an email to sales@paycompass.com with the DBA, and we will be able to pull it up and send it. The subject line on it is always, you've received a new application from PayCompass, and we put your name in a parentheses in that subject line. So at least that merchant knows, oh, this is what we talked about. This is what I talked to Mike about or Pat about or whoever.
Gotcha.
Chris, a couple of questions that through the chat, and really there may be the same question. Where or at what point in the process do they submit additional information, whether that be statements or photos or documentation? Is that part of the application, or is that something they send separately?
So right now, they can email that to sales@paycompass.com. In the next iteration of our CRM, they will have the ability to upload those documents directly to that record, as well as sending it out for signature, filling it out, just the pricing, having the merchant fill the rest out. Those are going to be functionalities that we're working into the next CRM, definitely. All right, cool. Let's move on to the personal information. This one's good. Okay, so as you know, as you see the system, it's by default set for one owner. So this has come up recently a couple times. There is a way you can enter two owners. As long as we're talking about underwriting ramifications, this is the main point right here. For underwriting purposes, we have found that it's easier when you have one owner. Multiple owners, you have multiple opportunities to be on the match list, multiple opportunities for it to get in pending because somebody has a credit for you, multiple opportunities if you fat finger their social security number, if they have separate addresses, somebody recently moved, their credit report hasn't been updated, they gave you their new address, but their old address is XYZ, it'll pen for that. So all these things, all these kind of intangibles are set up in a way to really grease the wheels for the underwriting process. If you absolutely do need to put two owners, it's a partnership, it's a husband, wife, whatever the case may be, all you have to do here is put in the percentage, and the magic percentage here is below 25%. So I'm going to go ahead and show you, if I put in right here, I have 100. If I enter, let's say this owner has 20%. It is then going to give me the option to put in other owners right here. So it's all based on the condition of this field percentage of ownership. Obviously, if it's 100%, you're only gonna have one person. If it's a couple, you can put less than 25% in here and put the owner in here. But we don't really recommend that. If you do have a good reason, I get it. It's your account. We're agent first. We're gonna do what you tell us to do. But for the underwriting purposes, we always recommend just using one.
Hey, this is Steven. I got some more sense for you guys.
Absolutely.
So I was in the mortgage business for a while, and there's a thing just to keep in the back of your mind when you're doing these applications as far as owners. If you go for a mortgage, say you, Chris, say you go for a mortgage, and then you put your spouse. Underwriting company is going to take the lower score. So to keep in mind, have the one with the better score. I mean, I know we're not running credit scores like that, but just keep in mind that when you put the stuff on, underwriting is looking at certain things. If you got some, like you were saying just before, if one of those partners or one of the second owners has a bad credit thing, that's going to come up and that's going to pin the deal. Just an FYI, keep it back in your mind.
Yeah,
So basically,
absolutely. And to kind of go into specifics of what they actually check, this is a soft pull. They're not pulling your credit score. They're just verifying that Chris Torres lives at 1234 Main Street. This is his social security. He's legit, and it's all Patriot Act KYC law. It's all spelled out in the MCA. There's really no getting around that. That's what they're checking. All right. Any questions? Any other questions here, John?
Nope, nothing so far. You can keep going.
Awesome. Okay. Well, I'll let Jeanie take over. We're going to talk about the processing info. We chatted about that a little bit ago, but I'll go ahead and let her take over this part.
All right. So one of the things I want to point out on here that Bree and I have been seeing quite a bit lately is I know there's a lot of statements that you'll look at for a merchant. So they'll give you their previous month's statement, and a lot of the times they have this great little breakdown that says your volume for the last month was $200,510.62, and that's what you put for the average monthly volume. Or it'll say your average ticket is $72.10, and that's what gets input here. We need rounded numbers because underwriting is going to look at that and they're going to end up rounding it up anyways. It's basically averages. We don't need the exact dollar amount for that average ticket. So if it's a $72.10 average ticket, go ahead and put 75 on there. Give it a little bit of wiggle room. We don't want to try to underwrite things to the penny. We want to keep it in that average, if you will. Also, when we go down to the sale method, so anytime you are putting a split in there, and what I mean by that is, thank you, Chris. So if you've got like customer swipes card at my business, and that's say 70% of the time, and 30% of the time you're keying in the card over the phone. So if you think, I'll just use a restaurant as an example, and most of the time people come into my restaurant, they swipe their cards there, but sometimes they call in a to-go order, which I don't really like to do, but sometimes I'll take that over the phone. You're going to want to think about what those averages are really going to be. So realistically, underwriting's looking to see, are they doing any sort of card not present moto type stuff? If you're putting in like the 75-25, you're not going to have to fill out an extra section. If you are putting in, say, 60-40, whole other section of information is going to open up down here. Now it's going to start asking you questions on how it's being promoted, who are the vendors, all of this additional information. One of the things to point out on there, so how will product be advertised or promoted? Typically that's going to be that kind of that first one up there, word of mouth, website, social media, what have you. General information is fine. They don't need to know that you are promoting on Facebook ads in this place. It's just a general, like, how is this stuff going to be promoted? Billing methods. This is key when it comes to reoccurring. So when you see that box, think reoccurring payments. If you put monthly and quarterly in there, see how it's going to ask you for that percentage. So this is telling the underwriter, oh, these people have quarterly payments that are going to probably be card on file. They have monthly, they have one time. This increases the risk profile. They're going to want to know a lot more about this business. Most of the time, it's going to be one time over the phone, 100%. If they are doing manual or monthly subscriptions, things like that, that is also when this would come into play. I honestly haven't seen a lot of pushback as far as that next line where it's got the list names and addresses of vendors. I really haven't seen a whole lot of pushback on information that is put in there. The next one there, who performs product service. Typically that is going to be self-fulfillment. I mean, most of the time it's the same business that's performing the service. So putting self-fulfillment in there is perfect. That next section on please describe how a sale takes place from beginning of order to completion of fulfillment. As detailed as you can get in there, the better. And a lot of the times what they're going to be looking for is they want to know, because this has come up quite a bit lately too, Chris, I'm not sure if I'm jumping ahead, future delivery. They're going to want to know, are they doing a deposit? So I am party rental place and you call me and you want to rent my tent. I'm going to charge you, let's say $100 deposit, but I let you book this 3 months out and it's another 3 months till I'm going to charge you the rest of the rental for that tent. That again increases the risk profile. That's where underwriting is going to ask for more information. I'll kind of pause right there and see if anybody has any questions. That was kind of a lot.
I do, Michael Zola. So virtual terminal, what happens? I have a lot of B2B customers. They never have card present. They only do virtual terminal. So how does that get fulfilled here?
So if it's virtual terminal, it's going to be 100% Moto because it's all going to be key entered.
Yeah. Well, even
and that is
payment links. I'm sorry, Jeanie, is payment links considered entered? Isn't that considered card present?
payment links is still card not present. That is typically going to fall more into that internet.
Look,
Because
that'll
it's
actually
not-
be feed. That'll actually be feed. E-com is the one thing that the question that you want to ask yourself, the crux of here is how is the card being entered into the system, right? Even with payment links, you send me a link, I got to go manually key my card in. E-com is I have a website, I have a gateway, think Pizza Hut, right? You put in your card, enter it in, charges your card. The difference between that and you calling Pizza Hut, mail or telephone order, is they're keying that into a terminal or a POS on their end. So that's going to be the main question that you're going to want to ask. If it is true e-com, it's going to be customer goes to the website, select a product, they pay through a gateway. Anything outside of that is going to be typically one of two things. It could be card present swipe or card not present, and then card present key, and then Moto. But they treat card present, not feed, and Moto about the same thing. So whether you have 50-50 there, you're still going to be filling that section out. And to kind of take this a step further, the reason they have this is to basically analyze the risk profile of this account, right? Is it all 100% moto? They're thinking, what's the possibility for fraud here? You know, how high am I really going to take this? And so other elements, of course, are your average ticket, your monthly volume. You know, how new is the business? What industry is the business in? Let's say it's a contractor, right? A lot of shady people in that industry. So that automatically is a red flag for this account. To me, the trifecta of red flags is going to be a new business, 100% moto or seed, and high ticket sales. That for sure there will trigger statement processing. Well, I don't have processing. Okay, well, we're going to need bank statements. Well, it's a brand new bank account. Okay, we're going to need a bank statement. You have to send a month-to-date bank statement. So they're going to want to make sure that there's money in that account for chargebacks, and that's the whole.
So I'm not thinking about any like a new business. I personally, a few of us up here, we go after the B2B market. You know, I mean, I have a label print company. You know, it's all B2B. That nobody walks into their business and pays them. Everything's done through virtual terminal, and you know, it's all done with interchange optimization. And likewise, I have a game board company. You guys might even play it, called Bananagrams. A lot of people have heard of it. I never did, but they're a customer, and they do nothing but virtual terminal. They send out payment links, and all in the B2B market. And
that's, you know, that's fine as long as, you know, we underwrite that account correctly in the beginning. We've had issues where the agent just, you know, they assume that it's card present. They put 100% card present. Next thing you know, they start seeing in 20-30% of their transactions. You know, Rob Johnson and the service team get involved, start holding money. We underwrote the account incorrectly based on an assumption, and then we have some problems. So it's always good to get ahead of this stuff. I know it might seem, you know, a lot of this information is kind of a pain in the butt, but it is to protect you. It is to underwrite the account and to save you from having issues down the road, having to explain to the merchant why their money isn't being deposited. You know, why are they holding funds? What's all this about? So really take the time to kind of, if you're not, you know, too well versed in this, please let us know. We'll be glad to explain that for sure. But getting ahead of it's always better. All right. Any other questions here, John?
No, you're good.
Okay. Well, let me go ahead and hold on. Let me just change this back to what it was. Okay. Go ahead, Jeannie. Talk about the banking.
The banking is pretty simple. I will say we've run into it a couple times with people trying to use personal checking or personal savings account. Typically, the only time that personal checking is going to not raise flags with underwriting is if it's a sole proprietor. Anything other than that, they're expecting to see a business checking account. And other than that, I mean, it's pretty simple. To Chris's point earlier, this will red flag that routing number, so make sure that that is correct when it comes in. If not, it'll flag it. Other than that, it should be pretty straightforward.
Yep. And then on additional underwriting on this, traditionally they don't really require any voided checks, right? So it's a great idea to have it, obviously, but as long as the information that's in here is verified, it's a routing to Wells Fargo, it's this account number, it belongs to this business, it's going to be fine. It's when they can't verify it that they'll ask for a voided check. So, you know, let's say you incorrectly enter the account number, they can't really verify it, they're going to ask for a voided check. But if you do send that in along with the account, that kind of gives us an opportunity to make sure those numbers are correct. So let's say you leave a digit off on the account number, we'll go ahead and fix that for you. So a lot of the things that we do in the background, you have no idea it's being done, but you know, that's part of our job, making sure that, you know, you're out selling, doing what you're doing, not kind of dealing with this stuff. So we kind of take care of that for you. All right, let's move on to pricing and equipment. This one's juicy. Let's start with the flat rate pricing, Jeannie. Kind of going into, you know, as you can see, 3.85 here. Some agents put in 4%. We are working on a matrix that has the formula set up for you, but I'll go ahead and let Jeannie kind of talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so with flat rate, I know the big thing that a lot of people are doing right now is cash discounting. You're charging the card holder, let's say a 3% fee, but the merchant is being charged the 2.91. So with the pricing, just to kind of reiterate, we should have hopefully this week a little matrix that we're going to send out to everybody that says if you're trying to do a 3% fee for the customer, the application needs to have 2.91 on it. We can go into the reasoning for that if you all would like, but just to kind of keep that high level, if you are submitting an application where you are planning on doing cash discounting, there's going to be that customer facing fee. That is what needs to be notated either under equipment or discussed with support at the time that those terminals, those point of sale systems are being set up. The information on the application is only for the merchant account. So if you put in 3%, that is what that merchant is going to get charged. If you are wanting to do just an actual flat rate where there's no discounting involved, but you really just want to charge them 3.25% flat, that's great. Also kind of notate that in there. We see so many that are coming through where we'll have, let's say, flat rate of the 3.85 here for credit for Visa, MasterCard, Discover, and American Express, and then there'll be a different rate in flat in signature debit. Typically, those are going to be the same rate. If it's not, expect a call from Bree or myself asking, did you mean to do this? But realistically, when it comes to those cash discounting, that's where we're kind of seeing the most changes that are needing to be made, because we do try to catch those before they go into underwriting. We'll call them verify. There's other notes. If the application says 3%, and that's actually what the card holder is going to be charged, what ends up happening is we have to enter it into the system at 3% because these accounts do get audited. And if it doesn't match what's on the application, we have to get a new application signed. So what ends up happening is we input it exactly as it is, and then we have to go through the back end and do a price change in order to correct that. I'll use the 3% example again, back down to 2.91, hopefully before that merchant starts processing. So notating what ones are going to be cash discount and knowing that when you're setting it up, it's not the application that needs to say that 3%. That's what support is going to need to know so those terminals are set up correctly. And I'll kind of stop right there and see if we have any questions on that.
So is there an issue with charging the same or charging more than that percentage that they're going to charge the customer?
What do you mean an issue? So there isn't. I mean, you can put, if they want to charge the customer 2% and their fees are 3%, that's completely fine. I mean, that's up to you and the merchant on how they want to handle that.
Okay. And vice versa, if they're charging 3% and I put it in, we charge them 2.5%, that's fine too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, back to we are agent first. It is going to be whatever you guys want to do. We just need to know what you're doing.
Okay.
Because we want to make sure that that equipment is set up correctly, and we want to make sure that the merchant's getting charged correctly.
Okay. And then the same thing with surcharging. They surcharge 3%. I could put in 3.2% that we're charging them. And, and then on debit cards, it can be 1% or whatever we want to do.
Exactly.
Okay.
One thing I missed here, guys, when I was going through this school, we do have some agents that have merchants that do not want to accept American Express. So this checkbox here is set here by default. You can simply uncheck it and the American Express field is gone. But it is by default. Most agents, obviously most merchants do want to accept it, but if you have one that's just like, hey, I'm really not interested in that, you can turn it off right here. Forgot that.
So a question about those rates, guys. Can you all hear me?
Yeah. Good choice.
Okay. So, in a former life, we used a margin calculator, and in order to try to get to a net zero, if at all possible, for the customer, there were numbers. For example, if they were going to do customer facing of a 3.5%, I think the magic number was 3.382 something or whatever. But it was at least three decimals after the decimal point. Are you saying that you want these to be rounded up? Because I think I tried to do that and I had a problem with it, and I talked to Bree, and actually I think this is set up on the flat rate. It only takes two numbers after the decimal point. Is that correct? So that number should be rounded up?
Correct. So if you do absolutely need the three, even four, we can definitely do the three, and that usually has an issue, takes an effect when you have large transaction amounts, right? So your, $50-$60 average ticket's really not going to make that big of a difference. It might be like a cent or two off at the end of the month, but obviously, we have car dealership giant transactions, $20,000-$30,000. It will make a difference. So that third decimal does come into play. In our new CRM, in the next version of it, you will have that opportunity to set that, that third and fourth decimal.
Okay.
And
so
Joyce,
at this point, yes.
Yeah, I was going to say the cheat sheet, if you will, that we're going to be sending out does have 3 decimal points on it. To Chris's point, moving into the new CRM and the new systems, we will be able to do those third decimal points on there. So that's more of the to the penny.
Okay. And so at this point, though, we should just continue until we get the new CRM to do it in a two digits after the decimal, just round it.
Yes, unless
Correct?
you really need that third digit.
I get it.
We can still do it. Just give us a call.
Okay, great. I get it. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay.
Awesome. So kind of showing the other fees here. Does anybody have any questions about any of these other fees? I know a lot of you, you know what these fees are, you know what they're for. It's up to you based on your schedule, whether you want to charge these or not. Any questions here? No questions. All right. No questions on fees. Oh, man, I like that. Awesome. Sounds like you guys are underwriting pros. You guys we shouldn't have any more pens then, all right?
Zero
Awesome.
pens moving forward. That's the goal.
You got it. You can get rid
Zero
of
promise.
Yep. I love it, man. I love it. Again, any guys have questions, never hesitate to ask. sales@paycompass.com. Just ask the question. We're here to help you guys. We're here to do what we can. Make your experience better, make your job easier, faster, increase your business.
All right.
Is that it, John?
Well, I think that's it. Chris and Jeanie, thank you guys so much. Thanks everybody for joining us. Again, we will send the recording out here a little bit later this afternoon. A couple of folks said in the chat, just, thanks to the team in general for being on the other end of that email. And I'll repeat that as well. Everybody, I know we were starting the call talking about folks that have snow, so stay safe out there, stay warm out there, and we'll see you next week for Coffee with Closers. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everybody.